What's good, everybody? Welcome back into the 4D Dynasty Trade Show. Man, today we got a lot of Joe Burrow trades to look at. That's going to be a hot one, being that he's out for the year. A lot of contenders scrambling, trying to salvage their season. We'll see how they did. Coming right up on the 4D Dynasty Trade Show. Adam, you on location, buddy. You look like you're in a closet. Where are you at?
Working remote. I got a little bit of extra closet space. It's a walk-in closet at least, so I got some closet space, and we're ready to talk Joe Burrow. So you should be ready to go for a bunch of Joe Burrow trades if you're trying to buy or sell. This will give you a good pulse in the streets and let you know how Mike and I are crazy off or on what you think the values are. So let's get right into that after we hit the intro.
40 chess, yeah, 40 chess, 40 chess, let's get it.
Yo, is that T-Dog?
40 chess, 40 chess, ay, 40 chess, this a trade show. Patreon where the trades go, tap in and watch. That's what you came for. Ain't gotta say my name, they know my name, bro.
What's good, man?
We got McNutted in ATM. Always start off the show with a trade from them. You should always make sure that your trade is in Patreon. Why not be a Patreon? Know you wish you could spend every day with them. Tap in and say what you gon' say with them. South Harmon could fill up a stadium. Next time you log in, make sure that you bring a friend. We about to kick off, let the day begin. Go follow the socials. 40 Chess FF is posted. If your trade is an F, you get roasted. Go like and subscribe for the crew. Apple, Spotify, and the YouTube. You know Cooper got the warp too. Let us give you a walkthrough. 40 Chess. This is 40 Chess.
Let's dive right into these, man. And if you want your deals featured, patreon.com/South Harmon. $5 get you access to the Trade Show channel where you get to gloat or you get to get destroyed. Either way, it'll be fun. And like all deals, we start off with one of our own. This
Mike,
one just happens to be mine.
We got you here today, buddy. Let's discuss this, all right? So we're looking at DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Tyler Higbee, Jalen Warren, who's been playing very well of late, Raheed Shaheed, as well as so those are the pieces that you're acquiring, all right? So you're acquiring those 5 pieces. You're sending away Tyler Algier, Puka Nacua, Michael Wilson, a 25 third and a 25 fourth. This is in the this is the OG shit league right here, right?
Yep, the original.
The original shit league. So it's a 12-team Superflex PPR. It's a half-point tight end premium. Best ball, we're starting 13 in this league. So, Mike, walk us through this, man. I mean, I initially want one side of this pretty decently. This is one of those trades I think you can make with a guy named No Games that he ain't playing no games, man. You know?
He sent this to me, too. I wasn't really thinking about it. I kind of had a contending roster that I've been riding out. Puka's been a nice find. One of the few shares of Puka that I didn't foolishly trade to you for Quentin Johnston.
One of the shares you had not moved away yet? Okay.
Right. So apparently No Games really wanted some Puka, and he wanted some Wilson and some Tyler Algier for his rebuilder. Don't ask me why, but people do weird things, and they like weird running backs for the rebuilders. I don't. The third and the fourth. So this was pretty easy. We just kind of, I don't know if we went too far back and forth. I don't think there was very many counters involved because when the offer was that good to start with, I'm like, all right, let's not mess this up. Up. I'm competing, Adam, if you can't tell. And I'm competing with you, and I'm competing with your buddy.
Yeah, Kevin Mullen's team is pretty good, yep.
It's a 3-way race at the top, and we just keep fighting each other every single week on who's the high scorer, who's in first place, who's in third. Like it's back and forth. So
it's a bloodbath, man. It's some really good teams up top, and it's pretty top heavy.
In the best ball league, man, if I could move off Puka Nacua, Wilson, and Algier, who's not really doing anything, both Algier and Wilson, and a third and a fourth for D-Hop, who could have a week. You know, Mike Evans has been having weeks. Tyler Higbee has been kind of ass. But he's still a tight end in best ball, so just catch a touchdown every now and then. Jalen Warren's looking up. I think both you and I, though, kind of envision him as more of that RB2 type until he actually takes over the workload from Najee. And then Rashid Shaheed, talk about a best ball guy right there. If there's ever was a best ball wide receiver, it's Rashid Shaheed. So I was like, damn, this is a lot of pieces to say no to. Done. I like you, Puka. I know Adam likes Puka, but he's probably going to see this one go through. And yeah, I would have said Puka for this shit, too.
No, I mean, well, put it like this. In best ball, the way I break this down, plain and simple, is Tyler Algier and Jalen Warren, I think both are in this role of the 1B in their offense. I honestly, right now, though, Mike, in best ball, would rather have Jalen Warren. I think that Tyler Algier is solid, and there's been weeks where he's been getting more work than Bijan, but I think it's starting to trend where, listen, even Arthur Smith has given Bijan a little more work than Algier, and that should continue to trend that way. I think Jalen Warren in best ball, the nice part is he has a floor of touches now. He's about 50% splitting with Najee, right? So there's a floor of touches, but there's also upside because he can take a long one or a pop play, and he can have some decent, receiving work. So I'll take him over Algier. Then when you go Puka, Mike, if you were to tell me I can get DeAndre Hopkins and Mike Evans for Puka Nacua in a best ball league like this where we're starting 13, like I love Puka, man. I'm telling you, I got Puka pretty high up in my dynasty rankings. He's going to be definitely a top 15 option, probably pushing top 10 even maybe. I'd have to really work through it to see, but a guy in that range is hard to get rid of. But if I can get, I know I'm getting older, but if I get 2 shots at guys that can have huge upside weeks, like on a contender, I'm doing that, especially considering the circumstances or the situation, right? When you have the context involved, you're trying to chase some goon squads up at the top, right? Like it's me, you, and Mullins. Our teams are ridiculous. So if you can, you kind of almost have to take this 2-for-1 shot. And then the way I look at this, Mike, is, Michael Wilson, the 3rd and the 4th for Higbee and Shaheed, is maybe a little rich, but the 4th I could really care about. And it's so minuscule in the fact of this whole deal that it's not going to get in the way of me pressing the button. I'm just going to take this as it is. And I think this is a really nice deal for you. Obviously, Puka long-term is the option I want out of the group, but what you're getting back in return right now to make a push to win is definitely worth selling Puka Nacua for, in my opinion, in the best ball league.
So, too, just for the WARP perspective of it, Jalen Warren's about 30 spots ahead of Tyler Algier in WARP already. And one of those guys is kind of getting an expanded role or, a little bit more excitement on her juice coming here towards the end of the year. And the other one in Algier, while he started off hot the last week, right, we saw Bijan get all, a majority of the touches, like rightfully so, which should have been all along, just Arthur Smith refused. Mike Evans in this league, Adam, top 20 WARP option.
Oh,
top
definitely.
20 WARP option. Just an absolute unit, so.
With the start 13, too, the skill players, I think, tend to rise because there's so many skill players that get up there. So Mike Evans has been a stud, man.
He is 1 spot ahead of Puka Nacua.
Wow. There you go.
So at some point, like, you just go, well, if I'm competing, I don't have my first in 24. I'm pretty sure I don't even have my first in 25. Like, we've sold our souls to the devil for this 3-way race for the money. But
yeah, and this is also to the point you're making, like, a trade like this, you're not actually losing any draft capital of substance here. So, like, this is one of those that I feel like is pretty easy to make, given where your direction already is locked in. Like, you are so competing. Like, there's no way I'm not considering hitting this button. Why not lean into it further,
Would you do it if you're on the other side of rebuilding? Like, I feel like it's too light for me to.
I understand what No Games is doing, but it's light. Like, I would say, Mike, if it was a 2nd and a 3rd, I think I'd be okay. But
okay.
That's. I think that's the difference. It needs that 4th needs to be a 2nd. I think that's what's missing. Like,
and I'm not
even if it was a
cheer back.
That's well. That is, some people do this thing. I don't know, Mike. It's not for us, but some people take these running backs back. I don't know what the plan is. I hope it's to flip, but if you're drawing up a trade offer, I don't know why you want to have an extra piece to flip. I'd rather just take the capital.
Yeah.
But that's I'm with you. We agree on that point too.
Give me a couple 3rds over Algier.
Oh wow.
Okay.
This is crazy. Listen, I Mr. Wonderful, I will defend Joe Burrow. And I think Joe Burrow has given people. They've seen the NFL success, Mike, and they've seen the fact that he is not just he's an elite option at the quarterback spot in a Superflex league or 1 quarterback league, but he has the staying power to play for a long time. I know there's injuries that have gone on. I know there's the Andrew Luck stuff. I don't think it's that severe, and I'm not worried about him long term. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
All that said, in this specific trade, I'm getting younger, and I'm getting a guy that's healthy, and I'm getting a guy that's playing sky-high, lights-out football. This is C.J. Stroud, man. If you want to have the debate when Joe Burrow's healthy here, I will have the debate with you.
Yep.
When Joe Burrow's out for the season, this is Mike. This is way too easy of a pivot, bro. This is a gift. This is a gift, frankly.
It is. It is. One of the things I've seen about the Joe Burrow acquisitions, like people usually taking on Joe Burrow, aren't taxing the contender or the person trying to sell Joe Burrow enough, right?
Yeah.
Dude's not going to play ball for the rest of the year. Not going to score fantasy points, and people are in a pickle with him. You got to leverage it. And so the trade ended up being Joe Burrow for C.J. Stroud. Straight up. No fillers, no fluffs for those listening on podcasts. And Mr. Wonderful's getting the Joe Burrow side, and I hate it. I hate it with a passion.
Yeah.
I'll take C.J. Stroud all day with the situation currently going on with Joe Burrow. And I think rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, again, like if it's healthy, I think this is a fair conversation. But they're very much probably in a tier for me, Mike. Healthy, and Burrow's not healthy. He's done for the season. I think this is too easy of a pivot to make one for one, because C.J. Stroud already showing you early that he has high-end upside and is playing extremely well with a team that's only likely to get better given their situation. So,
he's doing Justin Herbert rookie shit, right?
I don't feel the need anyway from C.J. Stroud to pivot up really much at all. Like, frankly, even to get to Mahomes, like the cost would have to be very insignificant for me to even want to do that. Like, I feel very secure with C.J. Stroud right now that I don't really want to play the up tier game. And one for one, I think Burrow's. You don't need to make this injury risk. I think Burrow's going to come back just fine. So it's not like you're doing this is awful, like, oh my God, this is the worst trade you'll ever make. It's completely unnecessary, and you're giving up too much value, I think, to a guy that needs a quarterback today.
Yep. Yeah, I take C.J. Stroud all day here on
so
this
do
one, Adam.
Yeah, so do I. Honestly, I take C.J. Stroud regardless right now. Don't care what the build is.
Second Joe Burrow trade.
Yeah, we got a bunch of Burrow trades apparently. Blitz was like, listen, how many Burrow trades is too many? I said, I don't know. How many do we have in the league? Put them all in. Put them all the Discord ones in. We'll talk about it. So we got Burrow being acquired, Mike, here for T-Law and J-Mo. So this one here is a 12-team Superflex PPR, half-point side and premium. It's a lineup start 10. It's ABC's Dynasty. Lineup start 10 now, Mike. Would you pivot up from T-Law to Joe Burrow, given the plus is only J-Mo? Or do you think you stay with that other side?
I think you felt a lot better about sending T-Law before last week. Right?
Yeah,
Because you're like,
sure.
man, that's starting to have some concerns. And then he came out and he had a really good day, right? Him and Calvin really connected, and you're like, oh, okay. All right, maybe we were panicked a little bit. Now, I want to see him do it consistently. This is what we thought we were getting with Trevor Lawrence, what we got last week, and we really haven't this year. So, but, another couple weeks if Trevor Lawrence is still playing really well like this, you're going to rather want – it's kind of like the one before, man. You're going to rather want to tax the shit out of somebody getting off of Joe Burrow and gifting him a Trevor Lawrence. But let's say I'm going to assume this trade was made before T-Law went off, which was very fair. Very fair. Like, here, you enjoyed this kind of landmine, and I'm just going to re-roll on a rebuilder to Joe Burrow, which I feel is a much safer asset at the quarterback position. So I understand that one. The Jameson Williams thing, I give two fucks about that guy. Right? Lineup start 10 too. Like, who cares? Who cares? Oh, mute, buddy.
Here, operating foreign country. Not really. I'm in El Paso. I'm right on the border of
Well,
Mexico, though. I'm on the border of Mexico, though. It's close.
I mean, it's still Texas.
Yeah, well, there
Texas,
you go.
foreign country.
But, no, I think in this one here, I'll say this. T-Law played great. So you at least saw the last week he played great. You at least saw the upside again for T-Law to blow up. He was the number one quarterback option in WARP. But I still, Mike, when I saw all of last year has not gone, or all the rest of this year, the beginning part of this year hasn't gone away from me. I haven't forgot about the 2 weeks he was absolutely awful, and the rest of the season he was absolutely mid. So, I'm actually pretty much okay doing this. The only place I would not do this, like if I'm contending, for example, like there's no reason, even if you're afraid of T-Law, to get off of a healthy quarterback to go get Burrow. Like, if I felt like I was a really strong contender, even if I had quarterbacks to play with, I don't think I'm doing that because you never know what's going to happen down the stretch. We've seen quarterbacks continue to get hurt. I don't want to, now all of a sudden I have Burrow and let's say, I don't want to pick any names, but you had 2 other quarterbacks. One of them gets hurt. Now you have 1 super flex option. That would not be the place I would do that. So the one place I say I'm out would be if I'm a contender and I think there's a real chance T-Law helps me win a title, even if I don't project him as a starter right now. Pretty much anywhere else, though, Mike, I think long-term I'll take Burrow because I think the floor and the upside are more stable. Although you make a good point, man. If this thing continued with T-Law, you could probably rather have the T-Law side. I just think this is 1 week, and I'm not going to overdo 1 week because we've seen a bigger sample this year, and honestly in his whole career now, which is not quite as high of upside as a Burrow type player.
Yeah, no, I get it. The JMO thing. Do you care about the JMO part? No.
The JMO thing is no. I mean,
Pass.
Mike, how long until we have to say JMO, even if he continues to play better and get more snaps, just this offense can't support that extra weapon anyway. So I'm good. Y'all can have it.
Yeah.
All right,
Yep.
Mike. Here we go. This is Blitz. We got a whole thing of Joe Burrow trades, and Blitz wants to insert his T. Higgins, Sam Howell trade in here. No surprise there. 12-team, 2-quarterback, 2-tight end, PPR, 0.75 tight end premium, 0.25 points per carry. Best ball start 13. This is the shit 4 league. Mike, all right, this is a guy that needs a quarterback. He ends up getting Sam Howell and a 24 third for T. Higgins. You can see Mike with a not quite crying laughing emoji, just the giggling laughing, like no tears of joy. And then Koopa with the oof. Koopa with the oof. So, Mike, what say you about this trade? Give us the context to this giggling emoji here.
Well, my laughing one is T. Higgins. You know my affinity, how much I still love T. Higgins and fight for him. He put him on the block. Blitz did weeks and weeks and weeks ago, right, when he first got hurt. Like, not this latest one, but the first injury, if you guys can remember. He's had a bad year, right, with injuries and being banged up and in and out. And this is just me poking at Blitz, right? He put him on the block. I sent him an offer because I'm not competing of DJ Moore for T. Higgins. He's like, I value T. Higgins way more than that. And I'm not moving him for that. And that was right before T. Higgins went for DJ Moore went for 230 and 3 touchdowns or whatever it was. And then I just kept poking him and prodding him. But he just kept holding out. He's like, I still want T. I still want T. I still want T. And all of a sudden, here we go. He trades him for Sam Howell in a third. Right? Sam Howell in a third. Now, this means one of two things, Adam. Either A, Blitz can say that he was wrong and he doesn't value T. Higgins like that anymore, right? And he kind of maybe regrets not making trades earlier. Or 2, Blitz listened to me and my Sam Howell love and how much I love Sam Howell for the future. Either way, Adam, I win. Either way, I win, hence the laughing emoji. So on this deal, though, yes. It's a Superflex league. It's a best ball league. Sam Howell is a good damn quarterback. If you can trade a guy like T. Higgins for Sam Howell, it's going to look gross. It's going to be an oof, probably from Koopa. Maybe not. Maybe Koopa's looking at the warp going, y'all sleeping on Sam Howell too. Maybe that's why it's oof. Maybe he's oofing polar vortex. I don't know where Koopa's oof came from. We'd have to ask him directly. But
yours is on the Sam Howell side. Is that right? You prefer the Sam Howell side, but you're basically saying either way it's checkmate. That's what you're saying to Blitz.
Either way I win. Either way I
you.
win. So mine's not in regards to the actual deal. Like, I wasn't judging the deal or chirping about it. I'm chirping at Blitz for just either he bought into my Sam Howell stuff or he came down on his absurd T. Higgins prices from earlier in the season. Like I said, either way I win. But on this deal, if I got to pick a side, it's going to be Blitz and the Sam Howell in the third. I think Sam Howell's a really, really good quarterback, and in this league, best ball start 13. I mean, he's worth every bit of a first and a second plus, to be completely honest. So.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too, by the way, Mike. And I think here's what I'll say. T. Higgins, if you drafted him in the offseason or whatever you thought he was going to be this year, he's been disappointing. I don't think there's any other way to say it. He had the week where, he's had like a week, essentially. A lot of mid, a lot of injured. With Burrow out for the rest of the year, too, I don't think this trade was made when Burrow was actually out for the rest of the year. I'm not 100% sure on that.
No.
But what I'll say is this. I like T. Higgins. I'll defend him as a receiver that gets a lot of, criticism for being extremely mid, or I think unfairly criticized as way overvalued. However, when we pivot over to the best ball format, Mike, T. Higgins to me doesn't have this like elite ceiling that I have to keep a receiver like him. In the best ball principles, this is kind of the receiver I'm looking to pivot off of, frankly, and get more depth. I think 1-for-1, like you may call me crazy. In a best ball league, I'm happy to make this pivot 1-for-1. In a lineup league, I can understand if it's a little different. Even there, Mike, I'm a little more bullish on Sam Howell than most people probably are. And that's okay. You can clown me for it if you want to be, that I'm bullish on Sam Howell. That's fine. Mm-hmm. I don't mind it. I understand why you could have concerns. Mike, the crazy part to me, though, honestly, is, and I think this is where it's kind of a smart deal from Blitz. You get an extra third, too. Like, That really shouldn't be happening, I don't think. That I think is kind of the idea of someone thinking they're getting off of Sam Howell, who they maybe didn't have highly valued, and they're thinking they're selling them at a, inflated rate, and they want to get a name brand like T. Higgins. I just don't think in a best ball format like this, Mike, T. Higgins is one of these pieces that I have to build a great roster. Like T. Higgins is someone that I can probably replace with a much cheaper option, 80-90% of him, if not the whole boat. So I think this is a perfect pivot to make if you need a quarterback in Superflex, frankly.
Yeah, and it's one of those leagues too. We start 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 4 wide receivers too, right? So
yeah,
everybody kind of goes up equally in demand as you go. It is a best ball league, so a lot of people, but it's not like the normal best ball leagues where you have all these options of flexes coming in. You actually do need to roster construct yourself a little bit correctly. So having guaranteed quarterbacks like Sam Howell is a little bit more important to me than having wide receivers. Even though you have to start 4 of them, Adam, you can just kind of find these dudes kind of all over the place.
I'm with you, man. I think we're on the same page here. Okay, Blitz, thank you for giving us your, intermission to go take a look at your deal. Let's get back to some Joe Burrow. Okay, here's the question, Mike. 14-team Superflex PPR lineup, 10 offense, 10 defense. Not your dad's FF league. Mike, I guess the question now is this not your dad's FF trade? We have Justin Herbert being acquired by Zach. I'm not good. Sending away to Adam Coleman, Joe Burrow, and T. Higgins. So a little bit of the T. Higgins stuff carries over. And Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, the stack there, or Justin Herbert? What say you?
So this is what I talked about with punishing people, right? Like really taxing them for the fact you're going to take Joe Burrow off of their hands. Now, Adam, it's a 14-team Superflex. I get it. There's only 10 offensive starters. There's also 10 defense. I will say this. Most IDP leagues, even if it start 11 IDP, the scoring just isn't enough. Like most of those warp graphs look like shit compared to the offense. So like they just kind of become irrelevant, to be completely honest. Sorry for your IDP truthers out there, but
yeah, you're right.
Shit IDP 101's a different breed where you almost rather have the defensive players because they spike so damn hard.
It's a different beast.
Animal.
It's a different beast. Let's say that.
So let's say this. If I'm just looking at it as a 14-team Superflex, start 10 offense, Adam, having one of these elite quarterbacks is so damn important if you're competing. So if this is the tax you have to pay to get one, Justin Herbert's really, really good. Really, really good. Yes, I will throw in a T. Higgins, but props to Adam Coleman on the other side going like, I'm not letting you just get out of this on a 1-for-1 swap. Not like that C.J. Stroud one we saw earlier in the show. If you want to get off of your Joe Burrow for another elite quarterback at the top scoring fantasy points, it's going to cost you a pretty damn good wide receiver. Like this is the tax for me to take this on. So this I really like. And it's not that I think Zach did anything bad. Like, Zach, you got to make this deal. Like, I've had to pay the piper on these before in the past, and it's just what you got to do if you want to compete and you want to make a pivot. So, but if I'm Adam Coleman, I really like I love the tax. I love knowing what you're the one with the leverage. You're the one holding the hammer and make them pay the price.
Yeah, shout out to Blitz at least for the transition here, giving T. Higgins and the trade here. Although unnecessarily early in the show, getting off of the Burrow stuff. I will say this, Mike. Here's what's crazy about this. Like I agree with everything you're saying, and I think the reality is if you have to make a pivot from Burrow, and you're able to stay in this elite range to get Herbert, like you're going to end up making this trade. So I'm not trying to knock Zach. The one thing I want to make sure people understand. Last trade with a 12-team Superflex best ball league. Forget the starters even for a second. And just go into a 14-team lineup league. The difference is it's not really the depth amount, okay? Because in a 14-team league like this, the depth you need. But the reality is guys like T. Higgins are very different because in this format, start 10, Mike, T. Higgins is one of these guys I've seen in enough 14-team leagues. I feel very good about having my T. Higgins on this type of a format. Like, I like having T. Higgins quite a bit in a 14-team lineup start 10. You'll see some people starting some options that are really gross. And so the only thing that ends up happening, if you make these tier-ups too often in a lineup league that's 14 teams, man, you watch some of these starters that you have if you don't build the correct way first. So I think if you're Zach, this is a pivot you end up having to make because you're probably competing. The reality is, do you have enough built up in the treasure trove to really hold off injuries and things that are going to happen and attrition to your team the rest of the way. Because losing a piece like T. Higgins is a lot different for me personally, Mike, in a league like this than it is in a big best ball league where I can replace him with any wide receiver off the wire. I don't have to worry about starting, you know?
Well, here's the thing. I get what you're saying, too, about depth. Like, it's a nice depth piece. If T. Higgins was having, like, the kind of season that, let's say Terry McLaurin, right? Terry's been okay. T. Higgins has kind of been okay when he's played. Hasn't been any kind of game-breaking, right? But say he was in that wide receiver 30 range, that's like the 110th player in WARP, right? What Zach just lost potentially and what he gained in Joe Burrow is a top 5 option in WARP, right?
Sure.
Like Joe Burrow now with Justin Herbert. So Justin Herbert is accounted for 1.5 wins just by having him on your team, where a guy like Terry McLaurin is like a half a win, right? Like, I will pay the tax of a half a win guy because I just lost somebody who's potentially given me 1.5 wins through this season so far, right? Like, I want that. Having that quarterback in a 14-team Superflex start 10 offense because, yeah, kind of like I said, I look at the warp graph for this league and defense just kind of no one gives a shit.
I'm not saying you don't make the trade, but I am saying that there's a big difference because, Mike, we have seen even this great season Herbert's having. You know, one of the guys I'm thankful for this year. Weapons are hurt. He had an awful week. If you go into the playoffs, if you don't get a bye, and Herbert has that type of a week and you have no depth, you're losing, period. So, like, I'm not saying I don't make this trade. I'm just saying losing a guy like T. Higgins, to your point of making someone feel it, because I agree with you on the Higgins point and points per game and warp and all that, but he still has name cache. I could pivot him directly elsewhere probably and get a good difference maker in warp, right?
That's
so
fair.
It's still valuable, a valuable commodity in a lineup format like this, in my opinion, where it's 14 teams.
Yeah, I get that point. Just from an actual wins perspective, though, it wasn't like he was doing anything for you.
Right. No. Now, T. Higgins this season, especially with Burrow gone, I'm not like saying, oh my gosh, you have to have this guy for the rest of the year.
Right.
But his dynasty value still carries a ton of weight, and that's hard to lose in a 14-team league. So anyway, let's pivot over to this one, Mike. This is an interesting
Joe Burrow
one.
deal.
Another Burrow deal. Mr. Wonderful out here purchasing him some Joe Burrow. Mike, here you go. B. Hall getting Kyler Murray and Jalen Guyton. Listen, it is best ball, so we'll say that for the Jalen Guyton piece, okay?
It's that IDP league.
And it's also an IDP league. This is the shit IDP league. This is Mike's monstrosity masterpiece, whichever side of the coin you fall on, okay?
It's amazing.
Yeah, people. I've heard people with remarks on both ends. Kyler Murray or Jalen Guyton. I'm sorry, Kyler Murray and Jalen Guyton, or Joe Burrow. Mike, what say you?
You can treat this like just an offensive trade, right? Even though it's the IDP league, there's no draft picks involved where we'd have to bring that in. There's no extra stuff involved on the defensive side of the ball. So Joe Burrow or Kyler Murray, and I'll tell you right now, Adam, you make a decision today as a contender. I'm taking Kyler Murray, right? Because he's actually playing, right? Easily.
Yeah.
And you're going to give me Kyler Murray and another piece in a best ball league? Yeah, this is B. Hall side all day. I don't mind Mr. Wonderful going out and buying Joe Burrow, but again, earlier, right? You're paying full boat, like damn near full boat prices. Like Joe Burrow's just going to be out for a week or two. Like this is the kind of discount you got instead of, the rest of the season discount.
Yeah.
That's my problem with it. I want to go acquire some Joe Burrow, but you should have seen the offers I was sending out for Joe Burrow. Like they were bad.
There's a reason they got
bad.
declined, right?
Exactly. I think I maybe got one of them accepted.
Did you? Okay, nice.
Yeah. Like people really need to do it. And then some of them, I was even allowing them to like pivot up to a Jalen Hurts, the number 1 or number 2 warp guy, depending on how your league's set up. And even those, like people are like still treating Joe Burrow like he's worth full value. Not me. Adam, he's done for the year. I'm trying to win a championship. I need damn points. Okay, I don't need a guy with a fucked up wrist.
Yeah, I mean, I fall somewhere in the middle to what you're saying. Now, I do think here, Mr. Wonderful has shown in 2 trades in a row, in my opinion, Mike, he is more adamant to acquire Joe Burrow than make people feel the tax, frankly. This is what I'm looking at right now, right? Like, I don't know. Do you agree with that point? Like, I'm seeing a guy that's very bullish on just acquiring more Burrow shares. And I'll say at least to this point, you typically need an event like this to really have a chance to acquire multiple shares of Joe Burrow because he's so expensive. If he's healthy, you can't really trade for him. So I understand acquiring them, to your point, and to what Mr. Wonderful's doing, but I just think if you're in B. Hall's situation, which you're buying, I mean, B. Hall, first of all, like, I don't know, man. This feels like you're letting him off the hook a little easy for a guy that is going to really feel the miss of Joe Burrow, man. Like, that's just my personal opinion. And I think very much that in the conversation of these two, Kyler Murray, the view and the perception from the public is that they don't know that Arizona continues to stay with him. There's fear. Whether that's right or wrong, I think that you look at moving forward from a year from now, it'll be interesting to see what people think of Joe Burrow. I do think the floor for him is higher because we've seen him win in the playoffs. People believe that the Cincinnati Bengals are still building around him and all that. So in a year from now, sure, maybe this pivot doesn't look that bad. But the reality is you let a guy have a chance that didn't really have one for almost nothing go continue to have a win, where for you, yes, you maybe win a little here down the road, but Kyler Murray, if he plays well and they end up winning enough games, what if they end up getting Marvin Harrison Jr.? What if, he ends up still being the Cardinals quarterback? And what if in Warp for the next few years, there's not a huge difference between these guys? You made this pivot on a rebuild. I understand what you're doing. I just feel like you could have asked or charged more for acquiring the Joe Burrow right now.
Yep. Just missing some tax. And in this league, Adam, we talked about this a long time ago with this league with trades. I don't think people realize how valuable those 4th, 5th, and 6th round rookie picks are going to be just because of how many of these IDP guys you can put on your roster in the best ball. Yep. And all of a sudden now they have immense value. They're putting up 20, 30, 40 points, in a given week and winning you a week. And you're like, I got this dude the 6th round of the rookie draft. This guy's a stud. I didn't even know who the hell he was, but he just looked good. Liked his combine.
All right, Mike. Next deal here is Sam Howell, your boy. Yeah. You're sending away your boy.
I know. It was a tough one.
Mike, I'm watching the short where Mike's saying, you can't get me off my Sam Howell love. He's like, I'm back, baby. I'm like, man, is this the old McNutted? Is this the Carolina Avatar McNutted? And I see this trade happening. So,
Prudent.
Mike, it's Sam Howell is going to Jag. You're acquiring Bryce Young in a 3rd. Mike, this is in Snake Balls, one of the 2021 startup leagues. Let me just put it this way. I'm not going to say right or wrong. Explain yourself.
Explain myself. All right. So I'm competing in this league, but little caveat for people, I've been QE hoarding since this league kicked off.
Yeah.
Right. There's I think there's 3 leagues, Adam, that we all kind of did in a row in a best ball, and I just found myself in these little QB hordes. Not crazy, okay? Not like some Slum No shit that we've seen on this trade show before. But, I got 4 or 5, and, pick up another one in the draft as these leagues have gone on. Finally, this is the first year I've been competing, right? I got a good squad. I had some draft capital. I bought some older players. I gave some people their picks back. By taxing them for Devontae Adams or, a Tyreek Hill, that kind of stuff. So I put myself in a nice position. Sam Howell was found money, Adam. This was a pre-rookie draft pick that I probably took at the 105, the 104, somewhere along there. Pre-NFL draft, I guess I should say.
For sure.
And, couldn't really get rid of him. But all of a sudden this year, it's damn, he's pretty good. He's helping me out. But here's the situation. The rest of my quarterback room is actually pretty good, too. So while Sam Howell is a top 5 option in Warp, for this league probably, I probably got the number 8 option. I got the number 10 option. I have a good quarterback room, and I have guys that are around. So I like Sam Howell. But I have a lot of shares of Sam Howell, Adam. My portfolio is very intense with Sam Howell. Maybe get a little Bryce Young in my life, right? I don't think Bryce Young is dead and over with. I don't think it's curtains for Bryce Young. He's a rookie. He's a number 1 pick. They have some options next year for potentially bringing him in some help on the offensive line, bringing him in a running back, definitely bringing him in another number 1 type wide receiver to pair with if Adam Thielen can still ball, at this time next year. Giving him some weapons. So there's a reason he was a number 1 pick. I'm not ready to panic yet. And if you would have told me at the beginning of the year, Adam, or way back in our rookie draft, hey, you're gonna trade Sam Howell for what's the 103, for the 104, whatever it is, I would have told you you're an idiot.
Sure,
no way. But here we are, and I get to tax Jag. I get to add a 3rd. I don't remember what I said about the counter originally, but he said back like a third. And I was like, okay, we're good, Jack. That's enough of a tax. You could have Sam Howell for this tax.
I'll say this. This one, the reason this one's interesting to me, I'm in this league. I saw the trade go down. Mike asked me kind of, you were like a little torn on the trade. The reason I say this one's interesting is that theoretically, I definitely understand what you're doing, right? You're essentially saying Sam Howell's getting to a uncomfortable value gain where you're riding this production has to continue, and all the things have to also check the boxes. Him maintaining the job there. There's a lot that can fall, as opposed to he's starting to get tougher to climb the ladder higher. Reason I word it that way is because you're getting into this Bryce Young first round draft capital, first overall pick. Like you feel like a lot more value insulation. The crazy part though, because he's played so bad, and this is interesting to see how much he's fallen for me in the community's view. Like, Mike, I'm looking at quarterback right now, 17 on keep trade cuts, halfway through his rookie season. And I'll say, like, it's very scary watching him play, how bad the team is. They need a lot of overhaul. They don't have their first. I think that the days of what he's looking at this year or moving forward, it's going to get better. It may take some time. So I get what you're doing. The only thing I will say is it'll be interesting to see really what the community and in particular what this league values Bryce at now, because you're now probably at this point going to end up having to hold Bryce Young until either value comes up or you find a partner that just lets you get a deal that you feel comfortable with. So I personally think, like, right now, knowing what I know today, not when you made the trade, what I know today, I might rather stay, if you're still contending, with the Sam Howell risk, right? But the reality is you have plenty of upside that if Bryce Young was to finish a little better, they make a new move in the offseason. This is still a young guy people can continue to get excited about. Bryce is probably getting closer to a floor unless he really just falls completely off of a cliff as far as value in his quarterback future, where Sam Howell's probably closer to a ceiling. But I could see where you might look back and be like, man, I should have just kept bullish on my Sam Howell love. I don't think it's a slam dunk is probably when you made the trade when we're looking at it today, in my personal opinion. But I totally still think it can work out well for you.
Yeah, I think it'll probably end up, like I said, a lot of it's just portfolio too. When you play in 40 leagues, I have a shit ton of Sam Howell.
Sam Howell, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So while I'm telling people to go buy Sam Howell, don't take it as a defense when I'm trading away a few, because when you're rocking 15, 16 shares of Sam Howell, eventually you got to diversify a little bit, right, Adam? That's
another good point too. Like just because I say go buy him doesn't mean I won't ever sell him in a certain situation too. So that's a fair point.
And those are two guys that I view kind of within the same tier, right? So if you're gonna trade within the same tier and give me a third, I'll go see what I can do with the third. And maybe Bryce Young maybe starts off hot next year, kind of like you were talking about. Like maybe he does. And all of a sudden, like, all those feelings about him being number one and winning the Heisman in Alabama, all that shit comes right back, right? Same thing with Trevor Lawrence. He was god-awful his rookie year. That offense was terrible. Second year, looked really good. And that's what elevated him into the conversation we were having earlier. Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. Like, it was a debate between people in the offseason. So just as bad as you can kind of be meh, you can also turn this around and be back in the elite territory pretty easily.
Yeah. All right, let's get into another Joe Burrow deal here, man. All right, Joe Burrow and a 25 first here, Mike, or Saquon Barkley and Tua Tagovailoa. Which side you got?
I'm taking Tua over Joe Burrow, right? It's just like the Kyler thing. It's just like the C.J. Stroud thing. You let him off the hook too early. That better be a good 25 first. Better be a really, really good 25 first. Or the Tua and the Saquon side is a absolute unit smash. We just had a short that came out about Saquon Barkley talking about him. And listen, he's a running back and we're kind of meh. But this guy has got ridiculous talent. And even if you want to do long-term dynasty outlook, there's a realistic scenario where Saquon does end up in a much better situation next year on an offense that we go, holy shit. And now we're looking at it more like a Christian McCaffrey situation like you were talking about. Like, damn, look at him with the Buffalo Bills. He transformed this whole offense. Right? Everybody is just firing on all cylinders. This thing cannot be stopped. So even for this year, though, like the Saquon, that better be like the 25 pick that is just like guaranteed this guy, Dab, is going to fall off a cliff here within a relative future and be dog shit in 25. Otherwise, pass, man. Hard pass.
Yeah, I'm looking right now, trying to get the some of the rankings up and take a look at this team. So it's a strong contender this year. I'm trying to see like the build. Man, now after this trade, Mike, it's Tua, Jalen Hurts, Sam Howell. He's got Gibbs, A-Chain, Barkley, Kamara, Amon-Ra, DK, Christian Kirk, Treylon Burks. So a little thinner there at receiver after the top three, but and TJ Hawkinson. So, and he's out of capital now. So this is one of those where you're like, okay, listen, this year you're still a unit. Next year, I don't know if it's quite even worth betting against them just because the quarterbacks are so good. So I would say this. I understand at least somebody that would want to pivot from Tua to Burrow. Now, I'm not going to say it's the right thing. Tua right now is playing awesome, and like if they're able to keep him off of his back and there's no concussion concerns coming up again, Tua Tagovailoa probably deserves to stay closer to the elite territory than people want to give him credit for. I just got to put that out there right now. I do think Burrow gets back into that range, and I can understand if you're like hesitant. It just feels like you're making that pivot at a time where Burrow's trending down and Tua's not. Tua's actually trending up. And you're also getting, man, like I get selling Barkley for a first if you're really far from, contending. But, man, I don't know, Mike. It feels – I'll say this. I understand what you're doing. In process, a move like this may not really hurt you too much. I just think overall my theme, again, will be I think you have the ability to ask and rightfully get another piece back here of some sort. I don't think you got to get crazy, but I think you deserve to get at least another piece back that they don't need on their rebuild. Like I'm seeing here, he's definitely got seconds, 24, 25 seconds, like something like that at minimum. Maybe a player he doesn't really feel confident in. Like I think you could ask for at least that coming back, man.
It doesn't even have to be a player that you really feel that confident in, but like you listed it off, right? Like give me Treylon in a second. Not that I think Treylon's anything special, but if he does something and someone wants to buy into him, at least I could sell him as a young wide receiver.
Right. Yep.
I think that's probably more the play. And I'm with you, too. Just the overall sentiment. I think a lot of people still hate Tua, even though he just comes out and just balls, puts up fantasy points, is a warped difference maker. Last year was probably scary for a lot of people, the concussions and, the talk about him never playing again. I know people still throw out the contract thing. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, Tua's going to be there. Right? This offense runs through him. They love him to death.
Yeah.
And I really like what I've seen from him. He hasn't taken those hits. He's kind of learned how to fall. He's not always falling on his head. So I think if Tua can make it through this year, right, the Dolphins have some success in the playoffs. I don't know how far they'll go, but if they have some success and Tua makes it through this whole year and a little bit of a playoff run healthy, I think all that shit will get buried and we'll be like, why did we ever worry about Tua? And all of a sudden, even next year with a healthy Joe Burrow, we're having more of a conversation of Tua or Joe Burrow. Like, where are you at?
Sure.
Which one do you want? Like, they're going to be close.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think they'll be close. I understand making the pivot. I just think right now, because of the timing, you have the ability to ask for more, frankly. I'm not panicked on Tua, as I don't think I ever really was, but Mike, I made a couple trades in the offseason where I definitely regret moving my Tua Tagovailoa. I'll just put it that way. So I understand getting Burrow. I just think Philly Wizwood out. You could have asked for another plus at minimum. Let's take a look here, Mike. This was our disagreement, interestingly enough. Blitz, I don't know if this was planned or not, but here it is. Because I could care less. I don't think we agree. I don't care if it's lineup, best ball, one quarterback. It's a freaking 2026 fourth-round pick is in this trade. That's kind of amazing that you went all the way down to the bottom of the barrel here.
That's the extra.
Like any type of tax anywhere is that's even warranted. Like that carries any weight in this conversation. So because of that, let's just basically view this as at least I view it as this way. It's a 101 straight up for a Joe Burrow, and for some reason the person getting the 101 thought they needed to get this 2026 fourth to feel good about it. So that just is hilarious to me. Mike.
That's the extra thing. And a start 9 lineup, too. Like the fourth is going to be the one to save you.
You better hope you land that Puka Nacua in the 2026 class. My goodness. That's all right, whatever. The bulk of the deal, though. 101 or Joe Burrow. 12-team Superflex half-point PPR lineup start 9. D-Gen Dynasty. Bub69 versus Barbecue Sauce in Scott Bed. Mike, you are the 101 side, so let's hear your reason in the 101 and all that.
The 101's safer. I don't have to worry about people shit-talking the 101 all off-season for various things. And I've already seen this. Well, we talked about it on the AMA, the argument on the AMA, but the stuff has already begun with Joe Burrow, right? Now, I think most of it's probably asinine But people are talking of, well, Andrew Luck got beat up, and then we saw what happened. Listen, I'm not saying it's going to happen, Adam. But we also saw it with Tua. Tua came out and balled his ass off last year, and all of a sudden he has an injury, a concussion. All of a sudden we're talking about Dolphins probably won't re-sign him. He might not ever play football again. He might walk away from the game. Like, this is scary for him. We don't even think he's good in the first place. People start this bullshit over and over and over and over again, and that's all they talk about. The 101 for me is safe, and it's at a flat point right now. Like, we know that Caleb Williams or Drake May is going to be really good, but from here until the actual rookie draft and just shortly after, that's a trajectory of a rocket. So if you want me to project dynasty value come June next year, they're going to be pretty damn close between the two of them at that point. So just give me the one that's safer, and I don't have to worry about anything. Not saying Joe Burrow's a bad person or anything too, but we've also seen these dudes like get arrested, like get assault charges pressed against them. Deshaun Watson shit starts popping off. Not saying that's going to be Joe Burrow, but that is inherently the risk you run with an actual player, a named player, that I don't ever carry with the draft pick.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, the reason that it's Burrow, it has nothing to do with the way that the 101 will continue to trend up from today. Like, outside of a significant, massive, ridiculous injury that we don't project for, Caleb Williams or Marvin Harrison or something like that. These top 3 picks are going to carry a tremendous amount of weight, and the players are probably going to be drafted inside the top 15, 18 picks in startups, right? So, and there's a case to be made that all 3 of them have a chance to go in certain first rounds in Superflex Dynasty drafts. So, the thing for me, the reason it's definitely Burrow, in my opinion, is when I have this 101 asset, and I know that at a peak it's going to probably be in the range of a Burrow, what I actually want to do is pivot off of this 101 and get – the whole reason I want to get these crazy high values and trade and make trades is to attain players that I probably would not elsewise be able to get with just players. The reason I say that, like, if you have a 101, you have all these early firsts, you can start packaging this stuff up and go buy yourself the assets that you normally won't have the opportunity to do. For me, Burrow still fits that bill. Burrow, to the point you're making about Tua and Kyler, I think fits this, and Fields fits this. It's not that when they're playing they weren't good fantasy assets. They're great fantasy assets, actually, all 3 of those guys at times. Tua was scary because people didn't think that he was actually the greatest NFL quarterback. They thought the Miami wasn't really going to build around him. There was fear of him retiring, the concussions. Kyler, while played well at times, has never really done much later in the year and has had some very bad seasons overall. Fields, same thing. And Joe Burrow has shown that Cincinnati wants no part of any other quarterback than Joe Burrow. He's won in the playoffs. He's gotten his team to a Super Bowl. You pair that with the fact that he is an elite quarterback asset. This is one of the 5, 6, 7 guys I want in quarterback, and I will pivot off the 101 today to secure that, because ultimately those are the hardest type of trades to get, is to acquire a cornerstone quarterback like this that normally you won't have the opportunity to do. So for me, this is Burrow. Caleb Williams may be great. Drake May be great. Marvin Harrison's probably going to be great. Joe Burrow I already feel like is, and I'm willing to make this pivot for him right now today.
Do you have any concerns, though, about his type of injury at all? Right?
The wrist?
So, yeah. So, just how quickly they pivoted to he's not playing to he's out for the year, right? Like, it's done. Like, we're going to have to do some surgery on this, or we're going to have to do whatever. Like, for a guy that makes his living gripping, holding, and throwing a football, you start talking about stuff with nerves and that kind of damage, and, you get into elbows and you get into wrists, like on your throwing hand. Just for me, with my my old school, like back in the day, baseball background, like that shit starts to make you nervous, just a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I've seen guys just go downhill. It's kind of like with shoulders. I don't care if you injure your non-throwing shoulder, or break that collarbone. Yeah, you're going to be out for a while, but you're fine when you come back. You start doing shit as a quarterback on your throwing side with everything that goes into those mechanics, and that's how you make your living and money. I'm not saying it's going to be bad, but it's like a little bit of like, fuck, what if we find out in the offseason, like, he's still dealing with, like, nerve issues, still can't grip a ball, like, that kind of stuff. Kind of like the Brock Purdy thing where how's he going to come back from a torn UCL? That's in his throwing arm. Will he ever be able to throw again? So just something to think about, where there's a little bit of that inherent risk, too, that's just kind of baked in for me. Not that I think he's bad or anything or I want to project it, but, this isn't, a rib injury or anything like that. This isn't a screwed up knee. This is the thing that makes them the money.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess actually it's funny. The Purdy one was going to be the one I went to where it's like, I mean, I was concerned about that, and I didn't believe in Purdy at all, frankly. It was a big concern for me, and I've seen him come back. I think he appears to be throwing the football as well as he ever has been. I don't think he was ever the most accurate or greatest quarterback with his arm before, but he appears to be throwing it pretty well given what he has. I think, Mike, that from what I've read about it, is there some concern? Of course, it's a season-ending injury, and it's your throwing wrist. It's a torn ligament, but from what I can kind of read and hear, they expect him to make a full recovery and it not be something that's serious. And I don't think at least from what I've gathered, I haven't seen people have this type of wrist injury where it's like, okay, we look back and there's a lot of problematic issues for quarterbacks in the past. I also think that modern medicine today, they're going to have one of the best do this surgery. So for me personally, it's more of a reason to buy a guy that, looking back last year was in the conversation with the only other one in the conversation with Mahomes, Hurts, Allen. I think this is a rare time you can buy him for the 101 straight up. Because a lot of times, here's the thing. If I want to get off of this 101 for one of these assets, while Burrow's not the safe ones because he's not playing, there's this injury, I'd rather do that 1-for-1 with him because if you still bring 101 to the table, Mike, for these other guys, let's say it's Mahomes or Allen or Hurts, you're going to have to play a plus. And it might be a pretty hefty additional first to go get that safety security that you think is, not injured and not as problematic. Mike, I think that Burrow, for me, I project him to continue to play very well. He's 27. He has had some injuries. I understand the concern. But I think right now you're probably buying a pretty safe asset relatively. And while 101 is a great asset, don't get me wrong, I just think it's going to be hard for you to pivot much north of Joe Burrow in the high-end quarterback range. That's why, for me, I'll just take Burrow today.
All right. I get you. Just a little bit in the back of my mind that just worries me a little bit about Joey B.
I get it. I mean, and I understand the concern of the injury. I'll just say the other piece is, like, if I ended up staying, let's say, with the pick, let's say you can't leverage it or you don't end up making the trade, I know for you and I, we feel very confident in our ability to trade it. So that's part of the reason you were probably leading it, right? But if I was to end up making this pick and I get Caleb, I think you could be looking at in a few months after the season starts, man, gosh, like, he may not be the guy we all thought he was, or maybe it's just not going to start as great as it was. Like, we're already penciling Caleb Williams to be very, very good. And to put him in the same combo for me as Burrow, I'm just going to pivot into that safer asset, in my opinion. So that's the reason I make that pivot. I think that's it, though. This is that was it.
That was the last one. Boom.
The Thanksgiving Joe Burrow deals, Mike. I guess as a Browns fan, we're thankful for the injury because the Bengals are no longer in the playoff discussion this season as well.
DTR is going to carry you to an AFC North title.
I don't know that that's the case, but what the hell, man? Maybe it's possible. You never know. Maybe
it's possible. Well, that's all I got, Adam. I really appreciate all these deals. The Joe Burrow deals were a great one to talk about. This could be the big Joe Burrow episode. So it means you should probably put T. Higgins on the thumbnail. I'm just kidding.
Put T. Higgins in Blitz. We'll find a picture of Blitz. Here. This is your trade show,
Blitz has got to wedge himself in here somehow, right?
He tried to take over the trade show with his Sam Howell T. Higgins trade. Come on, man. This is a Burrow trade show.
Damn Blitz.
I'll say this as a whole. I want to acquire Joe Burrow. I think this is one of the times you can acquire Joe Burrow. I also think if you have a guy that has not been able to pivot off of Joe Burrow, you might be able to get a little more back than you think. And I think you just overall consider what you're getting back, what you're sending away to acquire Joe Burrow today. Definitely a guy I want to acquire. I think he's safe. I think he's a very good asset moving forward. But you have to take on the risk, and the other person doesn't probably for some of these players.
What a brutal year for quarterbacks, though, man.
Awful.
We thought last year was an aberration. We're
welcome
for last year.
Welcome back. And happy Thanksgiving to you guys a couple days late. We will see you back here. Same time, same place next week for the Dynasty Trade Show. We're out of this thing. Peace.